Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Timeless Cookery YouTube channel. It's Emma Goodwin here from Timeless Cookery, and I'm joined today by the beautiful Lucy Puck. And Lucy has a website called naturalbornhealer.co.uk. What a brilliant name, Lucy. Congratulations on that one.
Thank you.
The site is a gold mine of nutritional knowledge from over 20 years of study and research. And I hear, Lucy, that your guru is Barbara Wren from Natural Nutrition Philosophy. Is that did I say that right? Tell us about what you learnt with her and when.
Barbara has written 2 books. She wrote the book Cellular Awakening, and I discovered her in 1999 after years of trying to find answers to my health problems. And what was happening was I was getting confused. I was treating my body allopathically, not holistically. And it wasn't till the day that I arrived at Barbara's first lecture, she explains the cellular nutrition and what the cell needs to work, that all the light bulbs went off, and she dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and she explained healing processes, she explained hydration, she explained cholesterol, she explained detoxification techniques that were being lost from our foremothers' healing ways, and she just taught me so much. And then I went on to teach myself, do courses, and I went on to cruise ships as a guest speaker. And yeah, she was amazing. She's still around and still doing talks, and I highly recommend you read her books. Sorry.
Are you in touch with her?
No, not in touch.
Let's post her book titles underneath this video so people can go and do their
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I've been following your Facebook page for a while now, which is Lucy's Natural Born Healing on Facebook, and you post the most brilliant, beautifully phrased and well thought out and inspirational writings. I always really enjoy reading your posts. It's really and I've been sharing them with other people because I think they really make sense, and I love where you're coming from, your angle on this whole I don't know what to call it. I call it the Rona, the Rona story, innit? That old Rona story. I think we've got to have a good old laugh about it, and so I like your take. We do have a bit of a laugh about it.
Yes.
Not too much. Let's just talk about food as medicine, which is our passion, it would seem. I hear that you have got a book on the horizon. I'm very excited.
Yes, which is called, funnily enough, Natural Born Healer actually, and that's going to be coming out hopefully in January. It's taken me a couple of years to write, but yeah, that's on its way. And it's just going to cover everything. It's going to cover a lot of Barbara Wren's philosophy. It's going to cover hydration, because when you're working with cellular healing, it's all about working with the building blocks of the body, which are the cells. And if the cells are working well, then the rest of the body will. If the cells aren't, then the rest of the body won't. And the cells need water, and they need essential fats. And they are the 2 spark plugs for the human body. And a lot of modern nutrition forgets about hydration. It's like this latest superfood, it's going to cure everything. But if you're not hydrated, then nothing's going to work, nothing's going to be absorbed. So it's covering that, and it's covering detoxification techniques. It's covering Gerson. It's covering the Chinese 5 elements, because I'm not just a nutritionist, I'm a naturopath. So I work with the emotional body as well, because the mind and body are not separate. And if we just focus on diet and we don't look at the emotional being, then people can end up sabotaging and never getting anywhere. So it's covering.
What are your top tips for hydrating then?
Well, you can drink all the water in the world and not be hydrated. So you need the essential fats. They work together, because the essential fats help to create the membrane around the cell to let the water move into the cell, in and out.
To get adequately hydrated, we need to eat good fats.
Yes, it's all about fat.
A lot of people, isn't it? So let's talk about what are good fats. What constitutes a good fat then?
Well, the trouble is, fats have become a dirty word. But actually fats are the foundation. The body is made of fat. The brain is made of, I think, 60% fat, and the brain is made of water and fat, basically. And what we've been brainwashed to believe in is modern humans are living on vegetable fats, but unfortunately they become damaged by heat. Whereas if you go back to the 1940s and 50s, when people were living on dripping butter, lard, they were so slim and they were so grounded, and there was very little problems with mental health, because they were getting the right fats. If you don't feed fat, if you don't feed the brain the right fats, the brain struggles. And the most important fat of all is omega-3, which you find in deep sea fish oil, the most bioavailable form, which means the liver can break it down. And that's nature's Prozac. And then the number of clients I see who say, as soon as I started taking the oils, my brain was firing on all cylinders.
What's the best? Sorry to interrupt you. I thought there was a bit of a gap there, and I thought I could jump in and interrupt you. And omega-3s, like, for instance, say krill oil, is that an omega-3 oil?
Well, the ideal omega-3 would be to take linseed oil, okay?
Yeah.
But the trouble with linseed oil is it has to be broken about 10 times down by the liver. And because modern livers are not working as well as they should, they become fatty. And they're not breaking down this oil very well. We give the next best thing, which is what I use, which is deep sea fish oil. And I get mine from Cytoplan. I get the liquid oil, and it's a clean source. It comes from sardines, I think, sardines and anchovies. The smaller the fish, the cleaner it is. And because it's the most bioavailable form of omega-3, it means that the body can use it easily. And you notice a difference within days. A lot of people, they're taking the linseed oil and they're not noticing anything because the liver's not utilizing it. When you take something and you notice a difference within days, you know it's working. Yeah, I've seen so many people who are on special diets or taking this supplement, that supplement, nothing's changing. You have to watch the body react. That shows you're on your way. That shows you've got the right thing, and it shows you're healing.
Yeah. So to get properly hydrated, we need the right fats, and what did you call it? The Prozac of the good fats is the omega-3s, and the best source of that is deep sea fish oil. Right, brilliant. So another thing you were just mentioning was emotional issues and emotional release. So say, for instance, you got really badly told off when you were 5 and told to go and sit on the naughty stair. And it might actually still be having an effect on how you're actually living your life, thinking you're not allowed to do whatever it is because you have to go and sit on the naughty stair. That's just a very mild trauma, and we all know that very many people have very many more terrible traumas than that. So I quite enjoy using EFT as a very quick and easy personal way to tackle things, and I often say to my clients, and I walk them through it, not that I'm a specialist at all, but it's what I've used and it's really helped me. Have you what's your top tips for freeing emotions?
Well, what I would just like to explain a bit more is this is what we call inner child work, because that little child who was maybe traumatized wasn't allowed to feel their feelings at the time. And so what happens is they grow up into an adult and they're still carrying that wound that they weren't allowed to feel, because as soon as you feel something, you release it. So it's still running around in their subconscious. And one of the processes I use on my clients is I get them to do the 3-letter way. So basically what you do is you write a letter and you pour your heart out. So it could be to your mum or your dad, and you pour out whatever you felt you weren't allowed to say at that time or ever tell them. And then you start to get in touch with your emotions. You can start to cry. And then you write a second letter, so it's coming from them. And it's not like you're making it up. It's just coming through, from your higher self. And then you write a third letter back. Dear mum and dad, thank you for hearing me. And then you burn them. And this process is so powerful because you're getting it out of the body, you're putting it down on paper, and you're releasing it. You're releasing it. You've felt it and you've released it.
That is sounding to me
free.
Sort of a magical, it's like a magical process, that is. But
yes.
That's actually founded on basic sense and
yes.
practicality, because you're writing, but it's actually a magical way by burning it then, and you've transmuted it. Sounds fabulous. I love that.
You're not carrying it anymore. You're not holding it in the body. You've been allowed to feel it and you've released it. And that creates huge shifts. And also on a spiritual level, we're all one mind at the highest level of being. Your trigger will pick it up. It creates a shift and it creates massive healing. So
when you say your trigger will pick it up, what do you mean?
On a subconscious soul level, they will pick up that you've let go of some anger. They will pick it up. So that will either bring them back towards you, or that will create a separation because you might not need them in your life anymore. So this is what we call in the Course in Miracles. You've taken a step towards God, and God's taken a step towards you, and then the healing is allowed to happen. Yeah.
Wonderful. I love it. No, that sounds totally amazing. So I was just watching on your site, on your Facebook page, that interview with Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride, who of course is my guru. I've studied with her. I've met her. She's my hero. We strolled along the field at the Groundswell Industrial Agricultural Conference, which is a massive conference. Actually, it's only 4 years old. They couldn't do it this year for obvious reasons, but there's big boys with their big toys, with their massive tractors. I mean, the big farmers with their big tractors who are farming hundreds of thousands of hectares between them, with their machines where a wheel is as big as your house, kind of thing. It's just scary when you see those big machines. But they've all realized that there is no way forward. The industrial agricultural model, there's no way forward. Even the National Farmers Union, this was 5 years ago, suggested that we only had 60 harvests left if we carry on the way we're going, because the soil, the biome, the microbes in the soil are so utterly destroyed, and there's no matter left in the soil. We're not going to survive. So what are we going to do? So these lovely guys, John Cherry, his name is, groundswellag.co.uk, I think it is. I'll put that in the link as well. Decided to, we've got to do something. So got everyone together to start working with no-till in the UK. I think farmers have been a bit complacent in the UK because they think, this green and pleasant land, we're all right. We don't have to worry. It's not like the Dust Bowls of America. It's not like, in Australia, where they've lost a lot of their topsoil because it just is not suited to Western agricultural practices in Australia and New Zealand. They've had to find out the hard way and find other ways of creating their food sources. But Dr. Natasha, my hero. So she was talking to Kelly Hogan, isn't it? Kelly Hogan? Dr.
rings a bell.
Was there at Groundswell talk, and Dr. Natasha was talking about treating depression, anxiety, anorexia, schizophrenia, and all sorts of hormonal issues using a carnivore diet. What do you know about the carnivore diet?
Well, the thing is, you're talking to someone who's an ex-vegetarian. From the age of 17, I'm now 56. So I was a vegetarian.
Girlfriend.
Thank you. I was a vegetarian, a strict one, for at least 10 years. And then I became a pescatarian. And then just before the menopause hit me, I became severely anemic. And I was living on greens. I was the queen of greens, promoting greens. I thought I was living on the perfect diet, high fiber, organic, lots and lots of vegetation, lots of healthy fruit and veg. And I got ill. And then I discovered Dr. Vonderplanitz, who connected the final dot and the final T. because with naturopathy and a lot of nutritional colleges, they promote a lot of vegetarianism. But for years, I'd been following Weston Price, who studied all the tribes. So I would tell all my students and clients about Weston Price, but I wouldn't follow it because of the moral aspect of eating red meat. I didn't want to eat red meat.
Wow.
And I had to end up having an iron infusion because of that, not wanting to eat meat. And when I discovered Dr. Wonderplanets, I suddenly went, uh-oh, come on, girl. You know, it's a kind of madness to deny yourself something that your body needs in order to flourish. And I've also been looking at the spiritual aspect of eating meat and going back to the tribes, the American Indian way, the respect, and how we need. It's like society's come full circle. We went down this hole of believing that plants were the answer, but they're not the answer. They're too full of anti-nutrients. They're full of phytates, goitrogens, deadly nightshades, oxalates, and more. And they are the plant's natural pesticides. We were never meant to eat plants. No tribe eats plants. They use plants for medicine. They eat meat, they eat fish, they eat eggs, they eat butter, they eat, some of them have raw unpasteurized milk. They don't eat plants. You know, a tribe doesn't eat bananas. It's just not in their makeup. And I always kept saying, look, we need to go back to the tribes. And so Wonderplanets was someone who had been very, very, very ill, had cancer, and he went down the same route, tried fruitarianism, veganism, vegetarianism, kept hanging out with the tribes. They kept saying eat meat, and he kept saying, oh, I don't know. He eventually did, and he just turned into Arnie Schwarzenegger within 3 months. And it's just, I'm on sites following women's carnivore sites, and they're just thriving. You know, again, ex-fruitarians, vegans, vegetarians who are just suddenly realizing that the body needs basically calcium, protein, and fat with a few electrolytes, and water, and that's all we need to focus on, really. So now I eat lots of meat, and I'm thriving. I've let go of any guilt over it. I've spoken to a lot of I had a vegan friend who was vegan for so many years, and she kept having this dream because she wasn't very well. She kept having these dreams about eating bloody meat. She kept ignoring them, and then she went within and sat and meditated, and she realized she was being guided to eat it. And it's come from source, you know, it's come from source. And people say, well, if you're spiritual, you shouldn't be eating meat. But the most spiritual people on earth are the tribes, and they eat meat. They're our guidance.
Exactly what I struggle with, because I've had a meditation practice and a yoga practice since I was about 28, when I broke down and couldn't eat because I was so depressed. And every time I tried to put food in my mouth, I would just burst out into tears, and I just cried virtually constantly for what felt like about 6 months. And then I found a Shivananda yoga center and began to do yoga and meditation, and started to reach what I felt was higher realms, as in I was peaceful, I was aware, I was calm, I was open, I was observing, and I was just feeling aware. And I got over my depression through fasting. I think it was an inadvertent fast that got rid of the toxicity that was making me depressed. I hadn't found out about Dr. Natasha and GAPS by then. So that was when I was 28. That's like, 25 years ago nearly. Then when I had my children in my early 30s, and I got really ill, and my children were really ill, and that's when I found GAPS, gut and psychology syndrome, which is Dr. Natasha's protocol, just to explain to those people who are unaware of it. That's when I started to really come online. But we do still use a lot of vegetables in full GAPS. A lot of my clients do still eat largely plant-based diet, except they have the magic of the cauldron, the stock pot. They're using stock all the time and loads
Right.
of animal fats.
Right.
So loads of tallow, loads of suet,
Yes.
you know, lard, ghee,
Mm.
coconut oil. I know that's a plant-based saturated fat, but at least it's a saturated fat.
Yes.
And the fatty fish and fish stock and all of these lovely things, and quite a lot of nuts and seeds as well, as long as they're properly prepared. Got to be properly prepared by soaking and sprouting and sometimes fermenting
Yes.
before you use them. And of course, then we have shed loads of dairy. I mean, I just had as a snack then just a bowl of cream and honey. I feel fantastic on it, but it's got to be 24-hour fermented. You can't just have it raw. If you've got gut issues and are lactose intolerant, it'll have an adverse effect on you. But with GAPS, we ferment it for 24 hours. So
Well, it's interesting because I'm lactose intolerant.
I was going to ask you, do you enjoy dairy or not?
Well, for many years I avoided it because it wasn't doctors who told me, even though I kept going to the doctor, because I suffered from severe bloating, IBS, migraines, and asthma. And I would keep going to the doctors, and the doctors would just send me away and tell me to put up with my symptoms. And it was a kinesiologist who told me I was lactose intolerant.
Say that. It's
I know.
So sad and not fair.
But I think my purpose was to find my own healing. But I always resonated with yogurt, so soured milk. And what I realised was that when you sour the milk, the probiotics breaks down the milk sugar and makes it bioavailable. Yeah. And this is, again, back to the tribes. They always ferment or sour their foods. It's like pre-digesting your food. So it takes the load off the digestive system. So I always make my students laugh because I say, look, I can eat yogurt till the cows come home, but I can't drink milk. If I was to drink pasteurized milk, I would start itching and sneezing. That's my body telling me I'm allergic to it, intolerant to it. Yeah. But I can eat yogurt and I get no symptoms. And the same with my daughter. She's lactose intolerant, and we're fine. And that's how we're meant to have our milk. And then when I discovered Vonda Planets, I discovered raw milk. And I thought, oh, maybe I'm okay with raw milk, but I'm not.
No.
I have to sour that as well. So I get raw milk from the local farm, and I come home and I make it into yogurt. I don't heat it. I just mix in a probiotic. Beautiful. And it turns it into yogurt.
Yeah.
So I have raw milk yogurt, which is just nourishing my body. Yeah. So beautiful. Yeah.
So you see, you're lactose intolerant. You can't have milk, but you can enjoy fermented dairy. I get so many people coming, and I say we're going to do the GAPS protocol. They're like, yeah, come on, let's do it. And I say we're going to have fermented dairy, and they're like, oh no, I can't possibly do that because I'm lactose intolerant. Yes. But Dr. Natasha will tell us that kefir, milk kefir, is the granddaddy of all ferments, and it's a cure for eczema. And most people are saying, I can't have dairy, I've got eczema. Dairy will cure your eczema, but it needs to be properly prepared and from an organic source.
This is it. Yes.
Yeah. So I'd like
the arrogance of modern man. Sorry. I was just going to say it's the arrogance of modern man, where it assumes it knows what to do. Whereas, for example, with the soya bean, the Japanese have known for over 80 years that the soya bean is a goitrogen.
Right.
It depletes the body of iodine.
Thyroid, doesn't it?
Yeah, it depletes the body of iodine. So they learn to work with the bean. So they learn to ferment it and which reduces the iodine depleting aspects of it.
And then you get seaweed, which is full of iodine to counteract it. Yeah.
But then you get scientists in 15 years ago thinking, the Japanese seem to know all about soya, it must be good for them. Let's get people in the West drinking soya milk. And the processing of that bean that hasn't been fermented in an aluminium vat, boiled to death, and calling it a superfood. This is where it all goes wrong, because we don't look at the cultures of the way they've treated their food,
Exactly. And I fell for that one. And when my little children had earaches and snotty noses endlessly when they were toddlers, I took away dairy and I supplied them with soy, and that is my one regret. I'm not a regretful person. I have to say, I've got no regrets, because like life is what it is. But I rue the day that I got foiled by those sods trying to sell the soy, and I fed my children soy, which messes with their hormones so badly.
Yes, it's like giving yourself a birth control pill, because of the effect of the hormonal. And I used to get boils every time I had soya. I would get boils, so I realized quite early on that it wasn't good for me.
Right.
And anything that is not good for you will create mucus. So wheat, pasteurized dairy, boiled to death soya, unfermented soya, will create mucus in the body.
And this is the body's message, isn't it? It's the message.
Yes.
If you've got boils when you eat something, it's like, okay, if I have a glass of wine that's not organic and it has sulfites in it, my nose starts running immediately. It's just,
yes.
Don't drink that. And it tells me immediately by giving me like drips down my, when I'm
and isn't that wonderful? The way the body, because I don't believe, that I believe that the body's always working for you. I don't believe in autoimmune disease. The body is always doing its utmost to help you, and it's always giving you messages. The body doesn't lie.
Yeah.
But it's also giving you, this is the work I do with the Chinese 5 elements, it's also giving you messages about your emotions as well. So, for example, if you get a spot, say on your left cheek, the cheek is representative of the lungs, and the left side is the female. So it could be telling you there's still some grief over something to do with maybe your mother, or it's amazing, the body, incredible.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Wow. I've got a little lump here on my right cheek.
Oh, I don't know why I said that, because I don't normally mention that.
Yeah.
I don't normally talk about the liver.
I've had it for ages, and I wonder. I mean, I can't even see it, so it's not as though you would have seen it. But it's funny. I've got.
Well, right side is father.
Yeah.
And that's the metal element in Chinese medicine, which governs grief and lungs.
Well, that's funny. And when I was growing up, all the workmen or whoever was talking always used to go, "Don't worry, love, it might never happen," because I always had such a sad look on my face.
Yes.
Around completely grief-stricken, and actually I feel as though I've only just in about 2013 come to grips with that grief. And I didn't know exactly why, because I had 2 parents who loved me dearly. I never wanted for anything specifically. Yeah, I got disciplined as they do, whatever, but I mean, I didn't really ever really suffer. But I think I have been grief-stricken for the state of humanity. Now, in these last sort of 6 months, it's become blatantly obvious to a lot more people. It's been obvious to me for some decades now that we're all living in this kind of slavery where you're in debt, and you've got to get to work to do the thing, to put the roof over your head, and no one's really free, and people can't really talk to each other openly, and everyone's in this matrix, like the Matrix film. It's like
but the Matrix is falling apart.
Yeah, thank God. You can see it. You can see the gaps and see it falling apart before you very hopeful. So can we just touch on
it's my daughter's an astrologer.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, my daughter's an astrologer, and she said she's always said old constructs are falling apart. And that's what we're seeing happening in the world right now. We've got so much light coming to the planet that it's showing up the dark, and it's they're revealing themselves, they're playing their hand, and that's happening to wake a lot of people up. So it's getting exciting, I think.
It is, and I like that. I've been actually giving thanks to the darkness momentarily to say thank you for showing us that that's not where we want to be, or not what we want to do, and you can now go. You've fulfilled your function. We've had enough now. Thank you. You may leave. Very grateful. Thank you very much. And I'm sovereign, and I'm a sovereign being with free will, and I never have and I never will consent to being experimented on with glyphosate and nanoparticulates and whatnot. Thank you very much. And now let's work with the food as the medicine to detoxify the body. Actually get our minds back. This is a really big thing. A lot of people have been asking me questions lately. Let's just touch on again the spiritual aspect of healing and of our being human, in that when we can be healthy and well enough in our physical bodies so that our minds are actually available, because they're not actually in pain or confused or worried or in fear. We're actually in control of our intention and our mind, and we know where we can point it. We're not being led.
Yeah.
We're actually choosing where we put our intention. And then, you know, many people I know who are on this kind of path want to connect to source and reach the higher realms. And a lot of people are saying to me, but I can't possibly meet, because they've been told by spiritual gurus that veganism, is plant-based, is the only way. I'm actually really suspicious of these people who are promoting that way.
But the trouble with the veganism is, the more hydrated you are, the more you will connect to your higher self, because water acts as the liquid crystal in the body. It's the connection between heaven and earth, and as it goes around you, and as you're taking your essential fats and you're drinking your water, it's connecting you, it's grounding you, while also connecting you to your higher self. Now, if you're vegan and you're not getting those essential fats, you're not as fluid, because you become more rigid. And it's the liver in the body that balances hydration. And the liver is the seat of anger. And it's also part of the wood element in Chinese medicine. So it's wood. And what happens is, when the liver, when you're not hydrated enough and there's not enough fluidity going around the body, you start to become stiff like wood. And you think you know it all. And you become rigid. And that is a way, and I'm sorry to say this about vegans, but whenever I post anything about meat, I get loads of other friends, because certain people can't hear the information, and they just think, right, I'm going to offend you now, don't want to hear this. It's all this rigidity around, oh, it must be veganism. But when we haven't landed on a vegan planet, everything eats everything else. We were never vegans in the past, because food is seasonal. How could you have been vegan, you know, in a country with no fridges, you know, 200 years ago? You would have had a bow and arrow to go and kill your weekly food. You wouldn't have had supermarkets where you go and get your hummus in plastic. So it's this that annoys me and frustrates me. And so the more grounded you are, the more hydrated you are, the more you can open up and connect. And it's the same with the oils. The more you connect to your higher self. And also, it's a quote that Barbara Wren used to say. It's about need, not greed. Need, not greed. Yeah. So it's about only taking what you need. And we've got to, as humanity has got to get back to only taking what we need, and to working with nature, not against nature. You know, it's like, if you watch the film The Magic Pill, which is all about the keto diet, they talk about getting the buffalo back on the plains, because it's the buffalo that help to sequester the carbon in the soil and help to create healthy soil and stop the
desertification
of the world. It's plant growing, it's crop growing that's destroying the planet. Not the animals. The animals are nurturing the planet.
Exactly. At Groundswell, where I met my hero, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, there were lectures by Alan Savory from the Holistic Land Management.
Oh yes, I love him. Yes, amazing.
He proved in 1986 in what was then Rhodesia that you can actually regreen the deserts, use herds of ruminant animals, where you'll allow them onto the desert area, even if there's just a few blades of grass and a few little tiny shrubs. You allow them on, they poob and they pee, they move them on immediately, and that will stimulate the growth of what seeds there are in the ground. You rotate them, and you very carefully bring them back around, just to take a little nibble, to poo and to pee and to move on. And it actually stimulates the land. This is Mother Nature's way, you know. And unfortunately, all his, I think it was 6 or 8 years of proving how to regreen the desert was all destroyed in the war in Rhodesia, very conveniently, I thought.
Yes.
What is
Well,
it?
I regularly share his video. He did a TED talk.
Yes.
He's had 30 years experience, so he's an expert. So
It's
I'm
totally
always
doable.
sharing his.
I really
Yeah.
love, there's lots of guys in America in the regenerative agricultural movement who have been
Yes.
really getting the message out there, which is brilliant. We're a bit behind in the UK, I feel, but Joel
Yes.
Salatin is awesome with his
Yes.
plant-based farm, and also Will Harris of White Oaks Farm, I think it is. There's a great little short film called 100,000 Beating Hearts, and he's
Okay.
redneck cowboy, producing beef, and all I cared about was how many pounds of beef I could get from this land, and his daddy died of dementia, and I think that brought him up sharp, and he went, "Oh, what's going on?" Because they had used artificial fertilizers, routine hormones,
Yes.
pesticides, herbicides, the works on
Yes.
the farm, and his animals were sick. He had massive vet bills. And he just sort of had, about 1993, I think, he just had an epiphany and went, okay, stop.
Yeah.
Now. He stopped everything. Not gradually, I think he just stopped everything.
Yeah.
It was pretty scary for him because, of course, the ground takes a while to recover.
Yeah.
But he then he already had 700 head of cattle, but then he brought in sheep, 1,000 ewes and goats, and 500 breeding sows or something, masses of animals, and ducks and geese and laying hens and poultry for meat and all sorts. And what he did in 10 years was regenerate his whole town. He brought people in. 40 people needed to now work on the farm. The beautiful, all black, white, Hispanic, everybody all together with their shirts off, working on the farm, and the birds and the bees, just humming. And the pinnacle of the food pyramid, a colony of 29 bald eagles or something like that.
Wow.
Colony of eagles nicking some of his poultry, but who cares? But what I'm saying is, intensive, which is abhorrent and toxic and disgusting, and of course we don't want to eat meat from the intensive agricultural model, but when you look at people like Will Harris with that little short film 100,000 Beating Hearts, you can see that it can be his way of doing it. He turned it all around in 10 years. It only took 10 years. He turned it all around. It was humming and thriving, and it was more intensive than intensive, if you like, and it was profitable. But on all accounts, it was profitable to the people, to the earth, to the plants, to the animals living there, to the ecosystem, to the wildlife, to the everything. It was just like, so we can totally make heaven on earth with animals in the equation, in a matter of 10 years, if we just get the political.
That's amazing. And back to what you were saying about dementia, it's very interesting. When you study the work of Von der Planets, because he connected all about toxicity and fats, and that toxins are always stored in fat.
Right.
And if you're an elderly person who doesn't have a lot of weight, where is most of your fat? It's in your brain.
Right.
So this is what happens with all the pollutants that we're surrounded, the industrial pollutants that we're surrounded by. They're going, and then we're being injected with the aluminium and the thimerosal, or whatever it's called, the new word for mercury
in the brain.
Yeah. But pardon?
What's the new word for mercury, did you say?
It's I think I've never heard anyone say it, so I only go from what I've read. It's thimerosal. That's a form of mercury. It's a bit like hydrogenated. Yeah, it's a bit like hydrogenated vegetable oil. That's now called monodiglycerides. So what they do, they're very clever. They change the word. So you look at monodiglycerides, and you don't, if you're new to it, you don't connect it to hydrogenated vegetable fat, which is a lethal alien, not even a food. So, and it's hydrogenated vegetable fat, actually, which is a trans fat, which has been the the one thing that's created so much damage to human bodies. Damage to the thyroid, damage to the endocrine, damage to the brain, cancer. You know, when you cook or eat margarine, you're producing over 500,000 toxic free radicals.
These are the spreads that are sold to us because it's easy to spread on your bread to make the children's sandwiches.
Yes.
And it's easy to cook.
And it's not vegan foods as well.
And they are sold as lowering your cholesterol, which is not something we want to be doing, lowering our cholesterol necessarily.
No, we need cholesterol. The body thrives on cholesterol. We need it. We need it for lubricating, for making hormones, for cushioning. There's no such thing, you know, when you give the body statins, what it does is it interferes with the liver's ability to create cholesterol. And then you get the side effects of blindness and blood skin thinning. So, you know, cholesterol is important. We need it. We need to help the liver not create excess. And the way you do that is work on hydration, because it's stress that causes the body to dehydrate. And when the body is dehydrated, it creates excess cholesterol. So it's all about reducing stress at the end of the day.
And how do we know if we are adequately hydrated?
Okay, that's a good question. You can pinch your skin and see if it goes back really quickly.
That's a good one. Everyone can do that. Pinch skin. Does it spring back? Okay.
Yeah. Whether your under eyes are dark or not, that shows that your liver is struggling, because your liver is your filter. It's like trying to flush a loo without water. It's the same with the liver. The liver is the filter, so it needs plenty of water to flush out toxicity. So the liver balances hydration. It's not just about the kidneys and the bladder.
That's news.
Energy. If you're losing energy, imagine a plant when it hasn't been watered, how it droops. Yeah, you give it water and it packs back up again. It's the same with the human body. When you hydrate the body, you have constant energy, because water helps to slowly release glucose through the day. So it keeps the energy even through the day. If you suddenly were to lose energy, say around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, drink a glass of water and then your energy will perk back up again. Right. It's all about hydration. It's so important.
Have you heard of Gerald Pollack?
No.
I forget the name of his site now, but he's a scientist, not from the mainstream, who is looking at the fourth phase of water, he calls it. So we're taught about liquid water, frozen water being solid, and then steam. You know, don't know what you call that. I'm not a chemist, but anyway, it's volatile, isn't it? It's, anyway, and then there's a fourth phase, which is.
Do you mean structured water?
Gel, yeah, kind of thing. Structured water. So if they've found out that when they look at it under the, I don't know what they're looking at it with, but that it's kind of stuck together, almost like a honeycomb, in a kind of a honeycomb shape. And that's the structured water. They call it water or exclusion zone water or something like that. And so there's an argument for taking in plant juices because they are full of easy water, of structured water, and because were you mentioning to me as well the Gershwin? That's it, the
Gershwin. He's a German doctor from the 1940s, 50s.
And that's all about taking in plant juices, isn't it?
Well, he was a doctor who suffered from severe migraines, and he would end up in a room for 3 days in pain. So he decided to look at his diet, went on a detox, and then started treating his clients, his patients. And then he realized with cancer patients, when you're that ill, the last thing you want in your body is lots and lots of food. So he got into juicing. And so he would get his patients to flood their cells with pure distilled water. And distilled water comes in about 8 forms. So distilled water is liquid that's free of any inorganic minerals. Okay. So what he would do is you get them to flood their body with distilled water, and then he would give them have you heard of coffee enemas?
I love coffee enemas. I'm well
Okay.
into coffee enemas. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he would get them to do a coffee enema to release the deluge that's pouring out of the cells. Okay, so it's a bit like treating the body like a plumber. You push in the goodies and pull out the baddies, push in the goodies, pull out the baddies. And that's how he cured his clients of his patients of cancer. He wrote,
they didn't get demineralized by drinking the non-mineralized water. They didn't become demineralized.
But they weren't drinking water. They weren't drinking water.
Oh, they wouldn't. I thought
they were just drinking juices.
Oh, I see. What did you were talking about? I'm sure I heard you mention
inorganic minerals.
Yeah, and then you mentioned, what's that? You know, when you collect water when it's steamed, distilled water.
Distilled water.
Yeah. Did you mention distilled water? That hasn't got any minerals in it at all.
Yeah. So when I trained with Barbara, she recommended distilled water. Okay. Because distilled water is empty of anything. It's empty of organic minerals and it's empty of inorganic minerals. So when you drink water that's full of inorganic minerals, so you get water from the tap, you boil the kettle, and then you get this chalky film there, that's an inorganic mineral. And when you ingest that, the body can't break it down, can't utilize it, and it'll dump it in the joints. And then as we age, we become stiff. When you drink distilled water, it does the opposite. It releases the inorganic minerals that are in your body and floods the body with the bioavailable minerals. So that happened in 1999. And then there was an article written by a scientist who said, oh, distilled water leaches out minerals. What he didn't mention was it leaches out the inorganic minerals that the body doesn't need. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
But distilled water you make with a distiller is a bit dead, and I've never been guided to use a distiller. I don't know why, but for years I could have bought one and I never have. So distilled water comes in many forms. So milk, raw milk is distilled, breast milk is distilled, rainwater is distilled, urine is distilled, coconut water is distilled, water from fruit and veg is distilled, and there was something else I can't remember now. But then there's distilled water you make, which is dead because it hasn't got any minerals in it. It hasn't even got the good minerals. So all summer, all I've been doing is I've been doing a lot of juicing. So because juicing I've always resonated with. And that's what Vonderplanitz did. He was a carnivore, but he also juiced.
Yeah.
So he got all the minerals. He got all the electrolytes needed. The potassium, the magnesium, sodium, and calcium in all their bioavailable form. And that's what we need to be doing. Because when I was a kid, I wasn't drinking 8 glasses of water a day. I was drinking milk, which is distilled water. But then I'm lactose intolerant and I can't drink milk. So there is this dilemma around water, and it's still something we're learning about. It's still something and I'm writing about this in my book. There's still a lot of confusion around water, because water is also a solvent. So if you drink lots of water, it will break down your minerals.
Yeah. Yes.
Because that's what it does in the wild. It's breaking down rocks, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Vonderplanitz was very against drinking water, whereas my teacher, it was all about hydration. So it is a little bit confusing. There is structured water, which is water that because I was taught by Barbara Wren, like if I had a bottle, I was meant to drop my bottle before I drank it. And like the Asians, they pour water from a great height to get the energy, to make it more alive. To get the life force back in there. And that's what I do.
A little spiral eye. I've got a little, you screw it onto the top of the bottle, and then you screw another bottle onto that, and then you turn it upside down and rotate it, and it creates this beautiful vortex in the water. And then
but as the Japanese guy, the waterman, what's his name?
Emoto, yeah.
You can actually visualize that. So you can pour water from a great height and visualize that happening as it goes in your glass. Yeah. And that, because we can alter, just by our thoughts, we can alter the structure of water.
That's pretty wild, isn't it?
So it's about getting the balance. It's about getting the balance of getting some good quality water, but not getting so stressed about it, because then that makes you, because stress causes dehydration.
Yeah.
So it's about getting the balance and not getting stuck in the ego mind of, I've got to find the best water. I've got to find the best water. Yeah. It's about balance. Yeah. So
Absolutely. Don't. I'm always telling my clients, I'm always saying, look, you're doing the best you can with the
yes,
you have.
yes,
You get an A+ for even
yes,
showing up and trying, because frankly, it is a minefield. It's confusing.
it is a minefield.
We're all just doing our best, aren't we? We're all just trying to. And when you do, just take baby steps, just like one thing at a time. What's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to start a stock pot. What's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm just going to look at my water. What's the next thing I'm going to do? And you just take it week by week and just slowly, step by step, build up to really healthy, I mean, happy homeostasis, where your body is actually adequately functioning, that you can relax because you're not in pain, you've got no itchy bits, and you can fully function.
But this is what I tell my clients, you know, there's signs that you're healing. One of the first signs is the bowels. And I talk a lot about the bowels. You know, because the ideal bowel movement is when, sorry, I'm going to be a bit graphic now, is when you wipe and there's nothing there, just like animals. Yeah. We shouldn't eat toilet roll. So when your bowels become like that, and the reason I know I'm on the right path is because when I used to eat loads and loads of vegetation and loads of fiber, my bowels were awful. Now I eat more fat, my bowels are clean. They're so much cleaner, and it's just a joy. It's just a joy to experience that. Yeah, because the bowels are your guidance. They tell you that everything's okay. This is what Barbara taught us. The bowels are your guidance. And she taught us that the liver is in control of your bowels. And then I proceeded to forget that for about 15 years.
Oh, man.
And I got into the fibre is the internal broom. Fibre is the internal broom. And when Vonda Planets reminded me, no, it's about fat, and that the bile, it's actually the bile that creates the most healthy bowel movements. So when you eat plenty of fat, and I'm including olive oil in this as well, because I know olive oil is a vegetable oil. Well, it's a fruit oil. It's actually different from most of the vegetable oils. It's monosaturated, and I love olive oil. So when I get my clients to make a fat-rich salad with loads of olive oil, you know, their bowels transform. They become cleaner. It's just amazing. It's not about fiber.
Just briefly before we sign off, because we're nearly at the end of the hour, and just briefly, what do you suggest for people who have had their gallbladder removed because of gallstones or something? Which is obviously what they need to digest fat with, but it's not there anymore. How do you help clients?
Well, I've got a friend who had her gallbladder removed 10 years ago, and she was doing the carnivore diet fine. But also, very interestingly, this is back to how the body works for you. My friend Fiona Corliss is a very well-renowned colonic hydrotherapist, and so she does a lot of colonics on a lot of my clients. And she says that after about 10 years, what happens is the body starts to grow a little sac where the gallbladder would have been, to start storing fat. So all it means is that your liver has to, if you haven't got a gallbladder, is that your liver has to work harder because it hasn't got a storehouse to store fat. So that's all it means, basically. Right. But the body will work with you to grow another one.
That's amazing. That's amazing news. That's really cheered me up. I'm not a GAPS practitioner. I'm a GAPS coach, but I know that the GAPS practitioners are taught about ox bile as a supplement to help people digest fats. So I think,
well, it always goes back to like for like, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, if you've got a thyroid issue, you eat
desiccated thyroid.
Yes. So it's like for like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Lucy, it's been such a pleasure to chat with you.
That's
You
okay.
are
Thank you.
literally a gold mine of nutrition and information, as it's so beautifully is written on your website. Would you like to just tell people how they can find you if they need to find you, if they'd like to work with you?
Yeah, so I have a website, www.naturalbornhealer.co.uk. I'm also on Facebook as Lucy's Natural Born Healing. I also make and sell raw chocolate, so Lucy's Luscious Raw Chocolate.co.uk. Yeah, that's the way to find me. And hopefully my book, Natural Born Healer, will be coming out very soon. I've got to get on with it.
Good luck with that. Brilliant.
Thank
I've
you.
tried to write a book. I haven't quite got there yet. I've written a little tiny little ebook called Gaps Snacks. But
Yes.
yeah. Lots of love to you, and thank you so much
Yes.
for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Emma. It's been lovely to connect.
Yeah.